This is a recording for Monday. We're going to do Daf Mem Amud Bet. So I believe we are all the way on the bottom by the Mishnah of Daf Mem Amud Aleph, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So says the Mishnah, Hacholetz Livimto. So somebody who does chalitza to a lady, who asur bekrovotea vi asura bekrova. He is asur on her relatives, and she is asura on his relatives. Meaning it's an isur derabanan. Just like when someone's married, he becomes asura on her relatives. So when someone does chalitza, also there's a rabbanan put an isur on for the person who did chalitza to marry the relatives of the chalutza. So hu asur beima uv'em ima uv'em aviha. He is asur to marry her mother, and Em Ima, her mother's mother, and Em Aviha, her father's mother. So her mother and her grandmothers. Uvita, and her daughter. Ubat Bita, Ubat Bina, and her daughter's daughter and her son's daughter. So her daughter and her grandchildren. Uv Achota Bizman Shi Kayemet. And on her sister, he's also Asura when she is still alive. But if she dies, if the Chalutza dies, then the Yavam is allowed to marry her sister. Because even if he was married to a lady and she dies, he's allowed to marry her sister. So of course, if he does chalitza to a lady and she dies, he's allowed to marry her sister. V'ha'achin mutarin, and his brothers are mutarim to the relatives. Meaning it's only the brother that did chalitza who becomes asur on her relatives, but the brothers who did not do the chalitza, the other brothers do not become asurim on the relatives of the chalutza. Vehi asura, now the chalutza is asura herself, be'aviv, to his father, uv avi aviv. So in the picture here we have a lady who, she was married to this guy, and he, he dies, so she does chalitza, she's asura on his father and her father's father. Uv beno, and his son. Uv ben beno, and his son's son. Uv achiv, and his brother. Okay, here we have beno, his son, ben beno, the son of the guy who did chalitza, and achiv, his brother. Uv ben achiv, and his brother's son. So the chalutzas, the yavams, the guy who did chalitza, right? This guy, he's Levi, was married to this lady, and his brother Shimon did chalitza. So the other brother Reuven is not allowed to marry the chalutza, and Reuven's son also is not allowed to marry the chalutza. Okay, umutar adam bikrovat sarat chalutzato v'asur betzarat krovat chalutzato. So we had this before. A person is not allowed to. He is allowed to marry the relative of his the tzara of the chalutza. So for example, you have two brothers, okay, and one of the brothers had two wives. This brother had two wives, and he dies. So the other brother, Shimon, he does chalitza to one of the wives. So he's not allowed to marry the other wife, but he is allowed to marry the daughter of the other wife, or one of the other relatives of the other wife. That would be the krova of the tzara of the chalutza. And he's not, but he's not allowed to marry the tzara of the krova of the chalutza. So he did chalitza to this lady. Her sister was married to a random other man, and she has a tzara. So he's not allowed to marry. Not only is he not allowed to marry the sister of the chalutza, but he's also not allowed to marry the tzara of the sister of the chalutza. So he did chalutza to a lady. He is allowed to marry her tzara's relative, but he's not allowed to marry her sister's tzara. Okay. Ibayalu. Gazru shniot b'chalutza olo. Gemara asks the following question. We know that by regular arayot, there are arayot that are deoraita, and some arayot that are derabanan that are shniot ba'arayot. Do these shniot ba'arayot apply to a chalitza or no? Do we say be'erva deoraita gazru b'urabanan shniot b'chalutza lo gazru rabanan shniot? Only by an erva deoraita, when someone is married to a woman, chachamim were gozer shniot larayot, but by an erva derabanan, no. By chalutza, which is derabanan, no. Odilma loshna, or maybe no, it doesn't make a difference. Chachamim were gozer shniot larayot on both. So says the Gemara, Tashema, Hu asur be'ima uv'em ima. The Mishnah says that the guy who did chalitza, he's asura to the mother of the chalutza and to the grandmother of the chalutza. But ve'ilu emima loktani. But it doesn't say he's asura on her mother's mother's mother. Now that's a shniya la'arayot. The great grandmother of a lady is a shniya la'arayot. If a man marries a woman and then she dies or whatever, he's not allowed to marry her great great grandmother. That's shniyot la'arayot. So you see that that's not included here. So vilu emima loktani. So the Gemara says no. Dil mahaynu tam lokatani dilotani mishum dekabay lemitni sefa v'achin mutarin. Veitana emima havamin achin mutarin davka be'emima aval be'emima uvima lo. So the Gemara says no. If that you can't bring a proof from the fact that it doesn't include ima, her great grandmother, that we're not including shniyot la'arayot. Maybe the reason it's not including ima is because we want to say that all these arayot, the brothers are allowed to marry. So if I would have said that he's not allowed to marry, the one who did chalitza is not allowed to marry ima, and then at the end I would have said the brothers are, I would have thought that the brothers are only allowed to marry that one, ima, because it's very far removed. But the brothers would not be allowed to marry the other relatives of a chalitza. Therefore, it doesn't say include ima, because I would have thought that the brothers would have only been mutarot to ima and not to the other ones. So the Gemara says, no, I have an easy solution. Velidni ima. You could still write ima. Write the great grandmother. If she's shniya la'arayot and she's included, you should write her. Velidni ha'achin mutarin bekulan. And write that the brothers are mutarin bekulan. The brothers are mutarin to all of the relatives, all of the aforementioned relatives of the chalutza. So the Gemara says, you're right, Kasha. It's a good question, but it's not strong enough to prove yet that we're not including shniyot la'arayot by chalutza. So Gemara says, okay, let's go on. Let's try to find another proof. So the question still stands: do we include shniyot la'arayot arayot derabanan by chalutza? Tashma, hi asura be'aviv uv avi aviv. So it said she is not allowed to marry aviv and avi aviv. So, right, you have two brothers. One of them is married to a woman. He dies. The other brother does chalitza. So that chalutza is not allowed to marry his father and his grandfather. So says the Gemara, katani mia avi aviv. So one of the arayot is father's father. So my love mishum choletz, isn't it because it's the father's father of the guy who did chalitza, right? Reuven or Shimon did chalitza. His father's father is asura on the lady who did chalitza. Dahavi ala kalat beno. Why? Because kalato is an erva deoraita. Someone's daughter-in-law is an erva deoraita. Now, someone's granddaughter-in-law, it's his son's daughter-in-law, that's shniyot la'arayot. So over here, you have the grandfather, Yitzchak, he has a son, Yaakov. This is her, the chalutza to Yitzchak is kalat beno. It's his son's wife. So that should be a shniyot la'arayot. So you see that shniyot la'arayot are included because it's his grandson's wife is included, and it's the grandson's wife of the chalutza. So it's by a chalutza that we have shniyot la'arayot. So the Gemara says, lo mishum mitna. No, it's not because it's his grandson who did chalitza's chalutza. It's because it's his grandson who was married to this lady at one point. The dead one, the brother that died, is also his grandson. So it's his grandson's wife. That's grandson died, but that doesn't make her muteret. That's a regular shniyot la'arayot, not by chalutza, not having nothing to do. Even if the guy didn't do chalitza, she would still be asura on his grandfather, right? Dahavila kalat beno, because it's regular kalat beno. It's his son's daughter-in-law. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, fine. Next proof, Tashma, uben beno. It says that she's not allowed to marry his grandson. So if she does chalitza, if one of the brothers does chalitza, she cannot marry that brother's grandson. My love mishum choletz, dehavi ala eshet avi aviv. Isn't it because she to the right. It's because of the choletz, because she is to the ben beno, to the grandson of the choletz. She's ki'ilu like eshet avi aviv. It's her father's wife. Now, not really married, but that would be the shnia, and we're applying it to chalitza. So the Gemara says, "Lo mishum mitna v'havil eshet achi avi aviv." You say, no, it's not because of the guy who did chalitza. It's because of this guy. Meaning, even if the brother never did chalitza, she would be asura on that brother's grandson. Why? Because it's eshet achi avi aviv. It's the wife of the father of the brother of his grandfather. So to the ben beno of the chalutz, this lady was once married to her grandfather's brother. Now the Gemara says, 1 second. So you're telling me, okay, that's a regular shniya and having nothing to do with chalitza, even if this brother never did chalitza, but she is the wife of this boy's grandfather's brother. So the Gemara says, Ha'amemar machshir be'eshet achi avi aviv. Amemar doesn't hold that case is a shniya. Amemar allows that case. So the Gemara says, Amemar mukila bebar bera de saba. Amemar learns the whole Mishnah differently. Says the Gemara, when the Mishnah says bino, right? The Mishnah said that she is not allowed to marry his relatives. Whose relatives is which relatives is she not allowed to marry? So it said in the Mishnah that Vihi asura be'aviv, she's not allowed to marry his father, uv avi aviv, and his grandfather, uv beno. Now when it says beno, we understood it as the son of the chalutz. Amemar understands it means the son of his father. So it's referring to the other brothers. Therefore, when it says beno, it means the son of the fathers, and ben beno means the grandson of the father, which is the same as, right? The grandson of the father is the same as his son, the son of the chalutz, and the other brothers. So the Gemara says, Yihachi hainu achiv uben achiv. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then when it says achiv and ben achiv, his brother and his brother's son, that's the same. His brother is the same as his grandfather, as his father's son, and his brother's son is the same as his father's grandson. So you're repeating things in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Tana achiv mina av v'katani achiv mina em. There are two different types of brothers that he could have. When it says his father's son and his father's grandson, that's talking about a brother who he shares a father with. And when it says his brother's son and his brother and his brother's son, that's talking about a brother even just from his mother. So that's how Amemar would explain, and that's how we get out of that proof. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, fine, next proof. Tashma, Ditani Rebbe Chia, Arba midivrei Torah v'arba midivrei Sofrin. So the Gemara says, Rebbe Chia says like this: you have 4 of the arayot, the 4 of the isurim of the chalutz, and to the relatives of the chalutza are midivrei Torah. They're similar to deoraitas, and 4 are midivrei Sofrim. So Gemara is going to explain. Not similar. 4 of them are going to be deoraita. 4 of them are going to be midivrei Sofrim. So Av ubeno, Achiv uben Achiv. So the father of the chalutz, the son of the chalutz, the brother of the chalutz, and the nephew of the chalutz midivrei Torah. Those are all asurim midoraita. Avi Aviv, the grandfather of the guy who did chalitza. V'avi imo, the grandmother's father of the guy who did chalitza. Ben beno, ben bito, his grandson, either his daughter's son or his son's son. Those 4, basically the grandfather from his father and from his mother, and the grandson from his daughter and from his son. So that's 4. Those are midivrei Sofrim. Ktani mia avi aviv. Well, what do you see? You see that it says avi aviv. One of the avi aviv is deoraita. So my lav mishum chalutz. Isn't it avi aviv of the chalutz? Right? What do we have here? Okay, no. So isn't it avi aviv of the chalutz? The grandfather of the chalutz is asur. V'havila kalat beno, and it's the same like we asked before. It's kalat beno of the grandfather. So that's and we're applying that to the chalutz. We say lo mishum mitna dehavila kalat beno. It's the kalat beno of the met, meaning it's the grandfather's, is his grandson's daughter, but we're not talking about the grandson who did grandson's wife, but we're not talking about the grandson who did chalitza. We're talking about the grandson who died. It was his wife, therefore she's asura on the grandfather. Tashema avi imo. So next one is avi imo, her mother's father. So my love mishum choletz, isn't it his grandfather is asur because of the choletz? The havia kalat bito. It's kalat bito. It's similar to kalat bito of the grandfather of the choletz. So you say lo mishum mitne. They have la kalat bito. It's kalat bito of the met, and it has nothing to do with chalitza. Even if the brother never did chalitza, she would be asura on his grandfather because it's the grandfather of the met as well, and it's gonna be to the grandfather of the met. This chalutza, this lady, is kalat bito. Tashema. Uben beno. Another one of the Yisurim is ben beno, the grandson of the choletz. So my love mishum choletz, dehavila eshet avi aviv. Isn't it because of the choletz? Because she is eshet avi aviv of the choletz, right? She is the wife of not. She's the grandson of the choletz. She is eshet avi aviv. She is the grandfather's wife, meaning the one who did choletz. It's viewed as his wife. It's gzera because of eshet achi aviv on the choletz. So we say lo mishum mitna. No, it's not. Has nothing to do with the choletz. It has to do with the met. The havila eshet achi avi aviv. It's eshet achi avi aviv. It's the wife of the brother, just like we asked before, the wife of the brother of his grandfather. So the Gemara says, "V'ha amemar machshir b'eshet achi avi aviv." Amemar is machshir in such a case. Amemar allowed it. So the Gemara says, "Amemar mukim la mishum choletz v'kasavar gazu shniot b'chalutza." So the Gemara says, "Okay, fine. You could say by Amemar that he holds that we're gozer, we're gozer shniot by chalitza, meaning you have a proof to Amemar. In this case, we can't answer like we did by Amemar before because we don't have the same format of the Mishnah to say that Amemar is referring to the son of the father of the choletz. Over here, it's very clear that we're referring to the choletz's son and grandson, and the grandson of the choletz is going to be asur. So you see, according to Amemar, it can't be because the grandson of the choletz is also the grandson of the brother of the husband of this Yevamah, because Amemar holds that she's muteret. So it must be because of the choletz. So according to Amemar, you see that we're gozer shniot ba'arayot. We gozer these types of arayot derabanan by a choletz. Okay, fine. We found according to Amemar, but what about according to everyone else? So the Gemara says, Tashma, the last case that we mentioned in Rabbi Chia's list of cases, Reuben Bito. We said the son of the daughter of the choletz. So my love mishum choletz, dehaviyala eshet avi imo. So to the grandson of the choletz, this lady is the wife of the father of his mother. So you have a grandson, you have the guy who did chalitza, he has a daughter who has a son. So his mother's father's wife would be asura, so his mother's father's choletz were gozer on as a shniyala arayot. Right, we're gozer that on chalitza as well. So Gemara says, lo, mishum mitna. No, it's asur because of the met. Dehaviala eshet achi avi imo. She was the wife of the brother of his mother's father. So that's why she's asura, not because of the guy who did chalitza, but because she was once married to his brother. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Derva lo gazru. By real shniot darayot, we're not gozer. If this guy never did chalitza, right, somebody's mother's father's brother's wife is not asur. His grandfather from his mother's side's brother's wife is not asura shniot larayot. So elalav mishum choletz. So you have to say it has nothing to do with the met. It has to do with the choletz, and she's asura because of the choletz. Shma mina gazu shniyot b'chalutza. Shma mina. You see from here that we're gozer shniyot larayot by a chalutza. Shma mina. That is the proof. Let's stop here.